"Yes, Mr. de la Molle, I know all about it, and here is the notice calling in the loans," and he placed a folded paper on the table. "Ah," said the Squire, "I see. As I remarked to your manager, Mr. Quest, yesterday, I think that considering the nature of the relationship which has existed for so many generations between our family and the business firm of which you are a member, considering, too, the peculiar circumstances in which the owners of land find themselves at this moment, and the ruinous loss, to put questions of sentiment aside, that must be inflicted by such sale upon the owner of property, that more consideration might have been shown. However, it is useless to try and make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, or to get blood from a stone, so I suppose that I must make the best of a bad job, and," with a most polite bow, "I really do not know that I have anything more to say to you, Mr. Cossey. I will forward the notice to my lawyers. Indeed, I think that it might have been sent to them in the first instance." Edward Cossey had all this while been sitting on an old oak chair, his eyes fixed upon the ground, and slowly swinging his hat between his legs. Suddenly he looked up, and to the Squire's surprise said quietly, "I quite agree with you. I don't think that you can say anything too bad about the behaviour of my people. A Shoreditch Jew could have done worse. And look here, Mr. de la Molle, to come to the point and prevent misunderstanding, I may as well say at once that with your permission I am anxious to take up these mortgages myself, for two reasons. I regard them as a desirable investment even in the present condition of land, and also I wish to save Cossey and Son from the discredit of the step which they meditate." For the second time that morning the Squire looked up with the sharp and searching gaze he occasionally assumed, and for the second time his instinct, for he was too heady a man to reason overmuch, came into play, and warned him that in making this offer Edward Cossey had other motives than those which he had brought forward. He paused to consider what they might be. Was he anxious to get the estate for himself? Was he put forward by somebody else? Quest, perhaps, or was it something to do with Ida? The first alternative seemed the most probable to him, but whatever the lender's object, the result to him was the same. It gave him a respite. For Mr. de la Molle well knew that he had no more chance of raising the money from any ordinary source of investment than he had of altering the condition of agriculture. He said, "this is an important matter, a most important matter. I presume, Mr. Cossey, that before making this definite offer you have consulted a legal adviser?" "Oh yes, I have done all that, and am quite satisfied with the security. An advance of 30,000 charged on all the Honham Castle estate at 4%. The question now is if you are prepared to consent to the transfer. In that case all the old charges on the property will be paid off, and Mr. Quest, who will act for me in the matter, will prepare a simple deed charging the property for the round total." "Ah yes, the plan seems a satisfactory one, but of course in so important a matter I should prefer to consult my legal adviser before giving a final answer. Indeed, I think that it would be better if the whole affair were carried out in a proper and formal way." Surely, Mr. de la Molle," said the younger man with some irritation, for the old gentleman's somewhat magnificent manner rather annoyed him, which under the circumstances was not unnatural. "Surely you do not want to consult a legal adviser to make up your mind as to whether or no you will allow a foreclosure? I offer you the money at 4%. Cannot you let me have an answer now, yes or no?" "I don't like being hurried. I can't bear to be hurried," said the Squire pettishly. "These important matters require consideration, a great deal of consideration. Still," he added, observing signs of increased irritation upon Edward Cossey's face, and not having the slightest intention of throwing away the opportunity, though he would dearly have liked to prolong the negotiations for a week or two, if it was only to enjoy the illusory satisfaction of dabbling with such a large sum of money. "Still, as you are so pressing about it, I really, speaking offhand, can see no objection to your taking up the mortgages on the terms you mention." "Very well, Mr. de la Molle. Now I have on my part one condition, and one only, to attach to this offer of mine. That is, that my name is not mentioned in connection with it. I do not wish Cossey and Son to know that I have taken up this investment on my own account. In fact, so necessary to me is it that it should not be mentioned, that if it does transpire before the affair is completed, I shall withdraw my offer, and if it transpires afterward, I shall call the money in. The money will be advanced by a client of Mr. Quest's. Is that understood between us?" Said the Squire. "I don't quite like this secrecy about these important matters of business, but still, if you make a point of it, why, yes, of course I cannot object." "Very good. Then I presume that you will write officially to Cossey and Son, stating that the money will be forthcoming to meet their various charges and the overdue interest. And now I think that we have had about enough of this business for once, so with your permission I will pay my respects to Miss de la Molle before I go." "Dear me," said the Squire, pressing his hand to his head, "you do hurry me so dreadfully. I really don't know where I am. Miss de la Molle is out. I saw her go out sketching myself. Sit down and we will talk this business over a little more." "No, thank you, Mr. de la Molle. I have to talk about money every day of my life, and I soon have enough of the subject. Quest will arrange all the details. Goodbye. Don't bother to ring. I will find my horse." And with a shake of the hand he was gone. "Ah," said the old gentleman to himself when his visitor had departed, "he asked for Ida, so I suppose that is what he is after. But it is a queer sort of way to begin courting, and if she finds it out, I should think that it would go against him. Ida is not the sort of woman to be won by a money consideration. Well, she can very well look after herself, that's certain. Anyway, it has been a good morning's work, but somehow I don't like that young man any the better for it. I have it, there's something wanting. He is not quite a gentleman. Well, I must find that fellow George." And he rushed to the front door and roared for "George" till the whole place echoed and the pheasants crowed in the woods. After a while there came faint answering yells of "Coming, Squire, coming," and in due course George's long form became visible, striding swiftly up the garden. "Well," said his master, who was in high good humour, "did you find your man?" "Well, no, Squire, that is, I had a rare hunt after him, and I had just happened of him up a tree when you began to holloa so loud that he went nigh to falling out of it, so I had to tell him to come back next week or the week after." "You happened of him up a tree? Why, what the deuce was the man doing up a tree, measuring it?" "No, Squire, I don't rightly know what he was after, but he is a curious kind of chap, and he said he had a fancy to wait up there." "Good heavens, no wonder the place is going to ruin when you deal with men who have a fancy to transact their business up a tree. Well, never mind that. I have settled the matter about the mortgages. Of course somebody, a client of Mr. Quest's, has been found without the least difficulty to take them up at 4%, and advance the other 5,000 too, so that there need be no more anxiety about that." "Well, that's a good job at any rate," answered George with a sigh of relief. "A good job? Of course it's a good job, but it is no more than I expected. It wasn't likely that such an eligible investment, as they say in the advertisements, would be allowed to go begging for long. But that's just the way with you. The moment there's a hitch, you come with your long face and your uneducated sort of way and swear that we are all ruined, and that the country is breaking up, and that there's nothing before us but the workhouse, and nobody knows what." George reflected to himself that the Squire had forgotten that not an hour before he himself had been vowing that they were ruined, while he, George, had stoutly sworn that something would turn up to help them. But his back was accustomed to these vicarious burdens, nor, to tell the truth, did they go nigh to the breaking of it. "Well, it's a good job anyway, and I thank God Almighty for it," said he, "and more especially since there'll be the money to take over the Moat Farm and give that varmint Janter the boot. "Give him what?"